Hey everyone, I'm Tatiana, and today we're going to be doing a C2C.
Hi, my name is Neil. I'm a first year engineering student at the U of A.
Awesome. Okay, so our first kind of topic is for your own personal experience in your schooling or in your own like circles and that kind of thing. What's your own personal experience with natural resources or environmentalism or any of those topics?
I would say over the years, personally, I haven't had too much exposure to environmentalism other than that like occasional social media posts I see from time to time. However, recently, now that I am in engineering, I have started to become more aware of sustainability, natural resources, and all the different industries in Canada that are involved in it. More importantly, though, I have started to learn more about global issues that surround us and the environment, including global warming, which is at the forefront of it, water pollution, air pollution, problems with waste disposal, and like so many things, right? Um, and I've known these for a long time, but I never really like knew the full extent of it. Like my knowledge was barely scratching the surface, and I think that goes for a lot of students, right? For a lot of young Canadians, and it is one of the main reasons why I joined SFC, which is to learn more, right?
Mm,
Yeah.
yeah. Oh, I love that. Yeah, that's so true, and it's interesting too because I find that for me in my experience, I was born and raised in Calgary. I went to school here, and so I think in my schooling growing up, at least, there's usually a decent amount of talk about like global warming and climate change and that kind of thing. But I think
Mhm.
being in a place like Calgary, we were definitely exposed a lot more to natural resources, and that was just always kind of part of the conversation. But it's really interesting to see um, all across Canada what kind of things you're exposed to more. Like even when I went to Ottawa for school, the kind of things that you grew up learning about were just so different from what you would learn about like in Calgary or like BC
Mhm.
or
Mhm.
wherever. And that's such a cool thing too with SFC is that there's so many different students from so many different backgrounds, and it's awesome to be able to get more insight. Like if someone knows more information about like certain global warming or climate change or environmental issues, it's other people know so much more about this whole other realm of like resources too. So it's really awesome to get that chance to just kind of fill in the gaps of what our knowledge is, I guess, right?
Definitely. Yeah, definitely.
Um, so do you see these topics in terms of like environmentalism? Do you see those being discussed a lot in your own circles, like whether it's with friends or in your own like education and university?
To be completely honest, I would say that only like a select few people that I know would know about these kinds of topics. It would just be those people that actively seek out this type of information, and uh, uh, I would say that the best way to get this info out there is to present it in a simple, straight to the point facts that are easily accessible to set a foundation for what people should know, because the goal is to get people aware of it. We're not here to be experts on these kinds of topics, right? And like nowadays, when we often see these topics being presented to us, they're in like these long articles filled with
Yeah.
complex data, graphs, and all this jargon that a student or a young Canadian would simply just not be interested in it, right? So yeah.
That's so true. And it's so funny too, because especially with SFC, we do have a lot of content like online where it's in smaller. It's so funny to see how being our someone our age, we're definitely way more likely to read something where it's like a 2 minute thing or like a small little like 10-second clip compared to like a huge thing. So you're definitely right in that sense where it's just like I think the mode of which we do give that information says a lot, even just like having one little Instagram posts with like a bunch of different information little bits on there. I feel like people love to digest that kind of stuff
Hmm.
on our age range. Whereas, yeah, you're right, like a huge research piece, I don't think someone would be too keen to sink time into that unless there's something they're
Definitely.
very passionate about.
Hmm.
And yeah, and I definitely agree. I think with obviously me being in environmental studies, obviously those issues were talked about a lot, but I find that it I think there's a lot of disparity. I think that there's like a lot of very strong niches in programs. So if you're in environmental studies, of course you're going to speak very heavily on environmental topics, but I think that maybe sometimes that can kind of bottleneck and almost have like just tunnel vision and you don't talk as much about other things. And I think the same thing could go for any other program. Like you said, for years, like you kind of touched on it a little bit in your program of environmentalism, but not to the point where you actually felt like you had gained a lot of information on it. So it's interesting to see that kind of, there are definitely holes in what we're taught in that sense. Yeah. Yeah, and our last question is, why do you think we should be talking about it? Like, why is it so important to be talking about environmental issues or just everything that surrounds like sustainability?
I think we want people to be comfortable enough to be able to start a conversation about it, right? To start talking about it. And I think like our social media platforms nowadays have become so like convoluted with biases, misinformation, and it's made these sorts of topics so polarizing that it has become quite hard to start the conversation. It's become very political, to say. And when people do talk about it, right, it often becomes this one-sided argument, which lacks so much open-mindedness. And I think that's why it's important for people to know that like these topics regarding the environment, sustainability, the natural resource sector, and how they all connect together isn't this black and white picture. It's not this good or evil type of scenario, and it's these topics contain multiple layers, and that's the reason why it's so complex to begin with, right? So yeah, just the main point is to be able to spread that awareness, so that people are talking about it. And I think once that foundation is set, I think we're in a really good direction. So yeah.
I love that. It's a great answer. I definitely agree. It's like, it's so easy in these days for things to be so polarized and just so extreme and so one side or the other. And it's like, you can never really come into the middle and have a conversation and have just discussion that's amicable and just have that meet in the middle to actually create solutions. Because I find a lot of the time people are so passionate about their side of things, which is totally fair. But it's like, if you have to be able to, I guess, give a little and get a little, in a sense. Like, you have to be able to want to teach and educate your own side, but also you have to be willing to learn more from someone else, because people are always going to have different perspectives and worldviews, and people grow up in so many different kinds of environments, right? So it's like really just trying to open up that conversation, make people comfortable to talk to someone who has a different perspectives, to just be comfortable in learning and teaching and growing, and just kind of opening up that conversation to meet in the middle, I think is so powerful, and just bringing it farther from the sides like this and closer and closer and closer to the middle. So yeah, I love that answer. Yeah. Okay, awesome. Well, that was all the questions I had. But I'm Tatiana and I'm a student with SFC.
I'm Neil and I'm a student at SFC.